Hello and welcome to the Achieve Goals Fast podcast. Discover the fastest ways to transform your career, finances, relationships, and personal life.
Okay, guys, I'm back and really excited. My very special guest today is Mr. Mike Pettigrew, all of the way from Ireland. He's a serial entrepreneur and an Amazon best-selling author. He's the author of The Most Powerful Goal Achievement in the World, The Hidden Secret to Getting Everything You Want. Does anybody want to know that? He really shares this system with people all over the world that allows ordinary people to achieve extraordinary goals. And he is a serial entrepreneur, as I just said. He's founded and bought, built, and sold more than, I think it's about 18 businesses, and he's widely recognized as an expert in goal setting. And I saw him on Amazon and I've talked to him, and not only do I love his Irish accent, but I love his achievement. So, Mike Pettigrew, welcome to the Law of Attraction
Oh,
Radio
thanks,
Network.
Constance. My pleasure, my honor. Thank you.
Well, I love your Irish accent.
Thank you.
So,
It's it,
what's going on in Ireland? What's the weather like before we get
well, it's it's
started?
it's kind of a bit the same as it is with you. It's a bit cold, a bit damp, but that's the time of the year. At least we don't have any snow, and yeah, it's nice. I like the weather no matter what it is. I like contrasts, and certainly this time of year, and living right on the Atlantic, the weather is so changeable. One day it can be lovely sunshine, the next day it can be lashing rain. All fun.
Okay, well, let's get started, Mike. But before we talk about goal setting, share with listeners your comeback story and how you use
Yeah.
gratitude.
Well, back in 2001, I had a very successful business. I sold it to a multinational. I thought I'd take an early retirement. Ha ha. Life often has in store for us all sorts of twists and turns that we couldn't possibly imagine. And unfortunately, due to making some really bad investments and trusting a couple of people who I should not have trusted,
Hmm.
I arrived at the point where I had lost everything. Our son was born in 2004, and I had no money to feed him, my wife, or myself. And as you can imagine, Constance, it was utterly devastating. I think when it comes down to a threat to the survival of your loved ones, that's incredibly frightening. And every morning I'd waken up and I would want to vomit with the fear. It was that intense. And, the previous year we lost €250,000. That's about $300,000. And we had several of those years. So it was just, I went from somebody who had a lot of confidence, a lot of self-esteem, somebody who was very positive and was really using the law of attraction. Gradually, when you constantly lose more and more and more, and it all slips away, you start losing all that confidence. You start doubting yourself. And I was berating myself and hating myself to have got my little family into such a terrible situation. But you know what, Constance? I reached the point, one morning I said, I can't take any more. I won't take any more. Please, universe, show me. I will do anything. It's amazing what can happen when our prayers are impassioned in that way. When we are almost at the point of desperation and we say, show me. And it was the first time I really said, show me. And you know what? The very next day, Constance, I picked up a book that totally changed my life. My prayer was answered in a way I couldn't possibly have imagined. And I picked up a copy of a book all about the power of gratitude. And that was Wallace D. Wattles' The Science of Getting Rich. And I realized how far I had actually slipped from being very positive to being really, really pessimistic, really negative, expecting more bad stuff to happen. And you know what? When I firmly believe that our dominant thoughts and our dominant emotions create the circumstances of our life.
Mhm.
And I realized I had got to change my dominant thoughts and dominant emotions because I was perpetuating our situation. I was making it worse just by the way I was thinking and feeling. So, reading this book about gratitude, I started to rediscover something that I'd completely forgotten, that gratitude acts as a magnet. It draws into our lives amazing good fortune. Often we think of gratitude as being a response that we feel to something amazing happening. But I think gratitude, I believe firmly in cause and effect. And I believe that gratitude is actually a cause, the effect of which, when we manifest gratitude and pull it out of our socks almost, we set in motion a series of events that can lead us in incredibly wonderful directions. And for me, I decided to do this little experiment, which I today call my crazy gratitude experiment. And what I did was I would bring up the power of gratitude every 30 minutes. Now, you might wonder, how can you bring up gratitude when you're feeling so terrible? Well, as human beings, we have this amazing capacity to change our internal state if we choose to do so. So what I did was I remembered a time in the past where I had felt deep, sincere gratitude. And I would think about that experience. I would relive it. And after doing this, every 30 minutes for the first day, but by the end of the first day, it became quite easy. I was able to spontaneously bring up gratitude without having to remember a time in the past. I was able to actually just draw it out of myself. Now, at the end of the first day, Constance, nothing had, physically changed in our circumstances, but I had changed. And, I was starting to transmit out into the universe new feelings, positive feelings. I started believing in possibility again. And an amazing thing happened. 3 days later, I got a phone call that changed my life. And it was an old competitor. He had a business just like the business I sold. And he phoned me up and he said, "Hey, Mike, how are you?" And I said, "Oh, great." Totally lying. To be honest, I was too embarrassed to tell him what I'd been going through. And anyway, he told me during that telephone call something that totally changed my life. It was about a new form of advertising. And he was using it in his business. And now, years later, I spend a fortune every day on this particular form of advertising. I'd built several businesses as a result of that one conversation. So what I'm trying to say here is that even if we feel terrible, even if we are at our lowest point in life, when we draw forth gratitude and we do it regularly, the amazing mirror of the universe reflects our internal state, and amazing things can happen. This is the law of attraction.
There's
We
nothing but the
attract
law of
into our lives.
attraction. Well,
Yeah.
Mike, I wanted you to share that first because that is so powerful. So, listeners, I'm talking to you all over the world. I'm sure you have food. And, I'm sure that your circumstance may not be as devastating as Mike's was, but just look what you can do with your thinking, your beliefs, and by being grateful. And Mike is exhibit A of what you can do. And so, Mike, here it is, maybe a decade later, and has your life drastically changed?
Oh, drastically, Constance. Yeah, yeah. You know what? One of the biggest things that has changed is the level of my belief the level of my vision for the future. Now, before all this experience happened, I spent a lot of time doing hospice work and other forms of healing work and a lot of voluntary work. So I was really creating value, but it's almost like I'd experienced the power of positive thinking for many, many years. And then I had to learn and experience the power of negative thinking. And really, I think I had to go through that because it was a way of showing me what most people go through to a very large extent. And, unless you experience this yourself, it's very hard to help people who are really suffering deeply. We just cannot understand another person's suffering really unless we have gone through something ourselves. So what this has done for me is it's given me a burning desire to help as many people as I can overcome their sufferings and create an amazing future for themselves. So really, it comes down to this thing: our dominant thoughts and emotions create our circumstances. So I'm a firm believer that whatever we go through in life, if we go through great pain, great suffering, and we come out the other end, we absolutely must share with others what we've learned. Otherwise, the experience was pointless.
So
I
true.
think, it's so important to share these things.
So before we get to goal setting, you've mentioned a couple of times how our dominant thoughts and feeling create our reality. I know that's a part of goal setting, but I just want you to talk about that a little bit more before we get into it. And what came to my mind was I've had people email me about going on the cruise and they say, I don't have the money. And I say back to
Yes.
them, if you say that and you think that, you're going to keep creating your reality.
Oh,
So
so
expound
true.
a little bit on how our dominant thoughts and feelings create our
Yeah,
reality.
I think, well, I think on just a normal level, everyone can accept the fact that our thoughts and our beliefs create our actions, and our actions then create our results. That's fact. But I'm really convinced that our thoughts don't end, you know, on the outside of our head. Our thoughts are actually go out into the universe. And you know what? I have a great interest in science and technology, and I'm kind of a skeptical person. I'm not cynical in any way, but I'm skeptical. I like to see, touch, weigh, and measure things.
Hmm.
And I've gone into this thing about our mind affecting our environment in a very, very, very deeply, actually. And there are so many scientific experiments that have shown, that have proved that our thoughts and emotions actually affect physical reality. And I think many of your listeners will know the name Dr. Masaru Emoto, the Japanese researcher who many years
Hmm.
ago he was looking at the effects of thoughts and feelings on freezing water samples. And he found that uh, the patterns were the patterns of the water samples that were freezing. They would create beautiful shapes when feelings or thoughts or words uh, of kindness, love, appreciation were transmitted to these freezing water samples. But then words that were, full of hate and emotions that were really negative, transmitted to these water samples, would freeze into crystals that were very ugly and distorted. And this was done again and again and again. And it's not just Masaru Emoto who has proved this, but there's so many other researchers, so many really reputable scientists who have discovered this. Even quantum physics has shown us in the last few years that the observer can affect the outcome of an experiment, that our thoughts and our emotions affect our reality on a subatomic level. So this is absolutely real. And you mentioned about your wonderful cruise, the Law of Attraction cruise in April. And I cannot emphasize this enough. What you just said there, don't think that you don't have enough money. It may be true, but if you open your realm of possibility, everything happens. I remember just related to this, several years ago, I spent, I think it was $2,000 on going to a marketing seminar, and I just couldn't justify spending $2,000 for a 3-day seminar. I was thinking, are you mad? Am I telling myself, you're mad? No, this is crazy. But you know what? I went to that seminar. It wasn't, I could afford it. I just couldn't justify it. I just couldn't justify it. But you know what? That was the beginning of a totally new era of self-education. And every year since then, I've spent more and more and more money on my self-education and improvement. And my goodness, does it come back? It comes back
Absolutely.
tenfold. The greatest investment I made in the last 15 years is really on my self-improvement, self-development, because it shows us what's possible. And, every year I spend tens of thousands of dollars on mentoring and coaches and mastermind groups. And my goodness, when we learn from others, we really see what's possible for us, because we all believe all this BS about ourselves, that we're not capable enough, that we're not wise enough, and all these, we all have all this internal negative self-talk all of the time. And there comes a point where we have to deprogram that using, I know you love affirmations, so do I. We've
Yeah.
got to overcome that negative inner voice, and it's a very, very loud voice. But when we do, when we open to possibility and we get rid of all that conditioning, oh my goodness, the gates open to an amazing future. It sounds like a
Unlimited
bit of a risk,
possibility.
but it's not.
Well, I just wanted you to expound on that. So, for listeners, you can begin to change your thinking, change your beliefs, be grateful, and you can change your situation, because really your mind and your beliefs creates your experiences. So, let's get to this goal setting. It's the beginning of 2019, Mike, and people have wonderful, grandiose ideas about goal setting, and your Amazon best-selling book, The Most Powerful Goal Setting Achievement System in the World. So, why do people need goals? I know a lot of
Well,
people say, well, why do I need goals?
yeah. Well, the most powerful goal achievement system in the world is really, it's a condensation of my 40 years of studying, researching human consciousness, buying and selling, and businesses, and growing businesses, and
Hmm.
losing everything and then growing it back. So it's real in the trenches experience that's gone into this. So much heartache and pain, and I'm so grateful for those experiences, because they have been the greatest thing that has enabled me to really open my perspective and my vision of what I want to do for society. And yes, this is a 7-step process. There are 7 steps in the most powerful goal achievement system in the world. And I think the very first thing is becoming clear on what we want.
Whoa.
Because to be honest, I've asked so many people over the years, and it's a question I ask almost everyone: what do you really want to achieve by the time that you leave this world? What do you want to create for your life? And often you see people's eyes glaze over and they go, and they're not sure. And there comes a point where we need to sit down and think about our future. Otherwise, we just react to changing circumstances,
So
and
let
we
me ask
just
let me
end up.
ask you something, Mike. So do you believe that people do not answer that question because in their heart they may think that would never happen for me?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
so true, Constance. So true. That's the biggest stumbling block, and that's probably the biggest reason why people don't plan their goals, plan their life, because they think right from the start, this just could never happen. So
Okay.
I think the important thing is, we need evidence. We need proof that a goal setting system, a goal achievement system works, and we need that proof quick. Otherwise, we give up. So people need small wins right from the start. They need evidence that what they're doing is actually working. And when you constantly get those small wins and you get evidence that whatever it is that you're doing is actually having an effect, your confidence grows and you can set bigger and bigger and bigger goals. And, there's no limit to it. I often think of it as being a bit like a snowball rolling down a hill. As the snowball rolls down the hill, it gathers snow and it gets bigger. And our lives are the same. Our confidence is exactly the same. As we get small proofs that this goal achieving system is actually having an effect, we get more excited, we gain more confidence, and we go for bigger and bigger goals. So, but it all starts by getting clear on what we want. As I say, most people an awful lot of people just don't know what they want. But if we just sit down for 30 minutes or even an hour, or even better, and just with a piece of paper and a pen, and just write down all the things that we would like to achieve at some point in our life, include goals and dreams we had as a child that we've given up on, that we kind of wish we had achieved. Anything and everything. It doesn't matter if some of these ideas that come to us are completely crazy. We can cross them off later. But when we do this, what would you say, brainstorming session,
Right.
it stimulates our creativity. Other ideas will come into our mind that we wouldn't have had if we hadn't done this. So that gets the ball rolling, starting to just do a brainstorming session and looking at what might I like to do, what might I like to
Right.
do. That's the very first step, and it's vital. But as you say, most people don't do this. They come home from work in the evening, they're tired. They just want to distract themselves with TV or a book. At the end of the week, instead of looking at important things like what I want to achieve in my life, they want, to recover from the week and just more distraction. So this can elude us for a long time unless we actually take that
Take
first
the
little step.
time to do
So easy.
it. So,
Exactly.
so, so let me say to listeners, this is the first thing. I was talking to somebody just this week, Mike, and I said, "Do you have your goals written?" She said, "I've been listening to you for 4 years." And I said, "Do you have your goals written down?" And she said, "No." And I said, "What?" That's the first thing. And I was reading I think in Time magazine this week, they had an article on if you just write down your goals, how you are ahead of, I don't know what the percentage is, but I believe that
Yeah.
the entire universe, God, angels, spirit, whatever you believe in, conspires to help
Oh,
you.
yes, definitely.
So
Definitely.
deciding what you want, everybody, write down your goals today.
And you know what, Constance, if there have been studies done into people, into the difference in people's lives, those who set goals consistently and those who never set goals, generally their lives go in very different directions.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, if we don't set goals, if we don't dream and start creating the life that we want, life will give us a lot of things we don't want. We just react to changing circumstances and we can live a very mediocre life, not what we were put on this earth to be or become. I think the
Yeah.
greatest gift we can give any other human being is empowerment. And to become, I think the greatest thing that we can do as individuals is become a beacon of hope for others. And everything starts with just getting clear on what we want.
Yeah, that's powerful. So what's the second step in this process, Mike?
Now, this is one of the things that makes my system
Okay.
uh, rather unique. There are a lot of goal achievement systems out there, and some of them are really, really good, but there are some deciding factors that I feel critically important factors that are missing from most systems. And it's very important to create highly charged goals. Because, if we don't feel passionate about our goals, if our goals don't excite us, we're not going to put much effort into achieving them. It's just fact. If we're not excited by something, we're not motivated to take action.
Hmm.
So it's so important to be excited about our goals. Now, how can we be excited about all our goals? Normally, that's not possible. We will have some goals that excite us, other goals that we kind of like to achieve at some point, but don't really excite us. But there's a way in my book of combining all our goals that can assist each other, and providing one of those goals has great energy and power and desire behind it. It can give power and energy and desire to the other related goals. For example, if you have a burning desire to do more traveling, but you also have a goal of working in a job that pays better with less hours per week, well, you can combine those three goals into a single highly charged goal. Now, the goal that gives these other two goals power is the burning desire to travel more. So you could reframe that goal in such a way that by this time, 6 months from now, a specific date, I will be working in a specific type of job that will give me a specific amount of pay and a specific amount of free time so that I can travel more. So that's a way of just combining three goals that are related to each other, where they are all given more energy and more power. And that may sound like a very simple thing, and it is, but it makes such a difference. It means that we can progress 3 or 4 goals much more quickly than if we were to focus on each one of them individually. So
I love
combining
that.
goals, to make them highly charged, that's amazing. I honestly feel that emotion is one of the most powerful forces in the universe, and whether we believe it or not, all of the time we're kind of in a state of prayer, in the sense that whatever thought we are constantly repeating with emotion is reflected back by the universal mirror in circumstances that we experience. So if we want to have amazing positive effects in our life, then we need to start transmitting out into the universe different feelings and thoughts. And it's a bit like a cell phone and a battery and a cell phone. If we have a cell phone, we don't have a battery. We can't use the phone to speak with someone in the next house. But if we have a powerful battery, fully charged battery, we can speak with anyone anywhere in the world. And emotional energy is just like that. Emotional energy is the catalyst that transforms our dreams into reality.
That's powerful. Okay, Mike. Okay, number 3.
Sure, number 3.
And before we're going to move on really quickly, but I
Yeah,
just want to say to listeners, I've read his book. Y'all know everybody who comes on my show, I read their book, but I love the way he has really broken down this system from the inside out to really accomplish. So listen very carefully. And I always say success leaves clues, and just learn how to really begin to create those highly charged goals. And the example that I would like to use, Mike, is someone who decides I'm going to release weight. And then they got 2 or 3 other goals, but then they release that weight and they're so motivated about that, those other goals, they start becoming confident and excited,
yes,
and then
yes.
energy goes to those other goals, and they say, I think I'm gonna start a business too. I think
Yeah.
I'm gonna attract love. So that's a great example of
It's
that for
amazing.
Mike. So
Yeah.
Mike, what's number 3?
Well, number 3, I mean, you get this in every single goal achievement system in the world. It's give each goal a deadline. And, we group our goals into short, medium, and long-term goals. But it's very important to give each goal a specific date, if at all possible, because, we have this aspect of ourselves called our subconscious mind. It makes up about 95% of our mind. Our conscious mind that we use all of the time is only a really small part. And our subconscious mind goes to act on the instructions we give it. So if we are passing instructions that are very specific, it knows exactly what to do. And we get inner nudgings and promptings and ideas come into our mind that actually steers us in the direction of our goal. So we need to give our subconscious mind very clear instructions with which to work on. So that's why it's really good to have short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals with specific date deadlines. So that's step 3. Step 4, I know you love this, is to program our mind.
Ooh,
And
hallelujah. Go ahead, Mike.
yeah, and programming our mind, it sounds like some sort of cyborg, but no. It's just converting our goals into affirmations and repeating those affirmations morning and evening with emotion.
Mm.
That makes such a difference when you convert your goals into affirmations. And your listeners know this because I know you talk about it a lot. Affirmations are the way to program your mind to achieve what all sorts of amazing things in your life, because the way our subconscious mind is influenced is through repetition with emotion. So if we recite our affirmations, which are our goals, morning and evening with emotion, our subconscious mind takes note immediately and knows exactly what we want. But on the other hand, if we are constantly changing our mind and changing our emotions and never focusing on our goals, our subconscious mind doesn't know what we want, and it can create all sorts of things that we don't particularly want, So that's important, to program our mind and also to root out and overcome our negative limiting beliefs. Because you know what, Constance, you know this, and all your listeners know this. We are bombarded by thoughts and ideas from the moment we're born about how we should be and how we should act and what we're capable of and what we're not capable of. All this conditioning on radio and TV and advertising, and our parents and our brothers and sisters and friends and school teachers and college lecturers. They're always telling us all these ideas that we should be this way or that way. And we all have all this baggage. By the time, a lot of people, I've seen this happen so many times, kids in their late teens, early 20s, so excited about their future, but then they experience some hard knocks in life, relationships that go wrong, careers that don't go great. And, by the time a lot of people arrive in their, late 20s, early 30s, they stop believing in possibility. And their conditioning closes them down to all sorts of possibilities. But in my book, there's a very simple way to become aware of our conditioning in any area of life, whether it's finance, whether it's relationships, career. And once you root out what those limiting beliefs are, there's a very simple way of counteracting those limiting beliefs using, once again, affirmations. So this thing about programming our minds is really important.
It
Uh,
is.
and
It
then
is.
step 5 is, and I've never seen this in any other goal achievement system. It's using high performance habits. Now, what you might think, what on earth is high performance?
Yeah,
Well,
I was going to ask you that question.
yeah.
Now, share with the listeners, what do you mean by that?
Well, a high performer is someone who succeeds above and beyond standard norms consistently over the long term. Now, all listeners will know what peak performance is, and athletes have to get into a peak performance state if they're to win a medal, but you can't sustain a peak performance state. The human body is just not capable of enduring that amount of intensity over a long time. But there are very simple strategies, tools, and techniques, or might be better to say habits, that we can adopt that enable us to have more energy, have more aliveness, have more enthusiasm, reduce stress, enable us to think more creatively, and enable us to achieve our goals far more quickly. And one of my mentors, Brendan Burchard, he's the founder of the High Performance Institute. And over a period of, I think it was 3 or 4 years, he he looked at the lives of, I think, 300,000 high performers worldwide. These are people who, as I say, succeed above and beyond standard norms consistently over the long term. So some of the world's most successful people. And what he discovered was there are common factors or common habits that they all adopt. And there are very simple ways of normally, as an example, we start the day full of energy, hopefully, and we lose energy as we move through the day. But there are very simple exercises that we can take every hour or 90 minutes. And these exercises, these very simple, I do a type of Qigong exercise. It only takes 2 minutes. It includes breathing and tapping various parts of the body. And after two to 3 minutes, no more, I go back to my desk. My mind is much sharper. I have more enthusiasm. I feel I'm much more focused. And doing this consistently, several times during the day, it means by the end of the day, we're not burnt out and we have more energy for our family. We feel better. These simple little strategies and techniques can dramatically speed up the achievement of our goals simply because we have more energy, we're more creative, and we feel much better.
So true. And so
Simple.
really there are faster ways that people can achieve their goals.
Oh, definitely.
Accelerated success. Okay.
Definitely. And also, another really important thing is to actually plan our actions, our action steps, because any goal that we have in life requires that we take action. Because we can have a wonderful goal unless we actually take action, nothing much is going to happen.
Right.
And this is where I think that mind maps are wonderful at stimulating our creativity. Now, a mind map, I started using these back in I think the early 90s. I didn't even know they were called mind maps. It's only much later I discovered other people were doing it as well. I would use a mind map to create a lecture or a talk. And basically what I would do is I get a piece of paper. And you can do this in software as well. And in the center of the page, I'd put down my goal or my objective, which was to give a lecture on a certain topic. And then any idea that would come to me that I just write it down on the page, any idea related to that project or that lecture I was creating. And at first, all sorts of ideas come to you, no particular order. And after a while, just by, thinking about and writing down on a piece of paper the things that you need to do to give your lecture or whatever, it stimulates your creativity. All sorts of ideas start flowing out of your mind. And we need to do this process for each of our goals. We need to brainstorm using a mind map what action steps we need to take to achieve each of our goals. Now, when we start planning our bigger goals, we might only know one or two of those action steps we need to take, but no problem, just write it down. And as we write things down, more ideas come into our mind. But if we don't do this, nothing much happens. So we need to plan our goals. So important, so important.
Wow, this is so good. We need more time, Mike, but we have about 10 minutes. So what's step 6 that listeners can begin to take to really have those fast, accelerated goal achievements?
Oh, well, Constance, you know what? I confused my two steps there. I started talking about step 6 before I started talking about step 5.
That's fine.
So yeah, step 6 is planning for accelerated success,
Yeah.
and step 7 is adopting high performance techniques, and step 7, the final step, I mentioned it a bit earlier about overcoming our limiting beliefs, and I did mention a very simple exercise for becoming aware of that. But you know what? In fact, can I share the exercise? Because it's really...
We have a little time. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's really simple, but it's very powerful. Basically, whatever area of life you feel you're being held back in. For example, finances, if you find at the end of the month you just have no money left, and no matter how hard you try to save, your finances are terrible, and so you might want to improve your finances. So you might start thinking, um, do I have limiting beliefs around money? So this is a very simple technique, and you can do it for any area of life, but let's use money as an example. So you'd ask yourself the question, I can't be rich because, or I can't achieve whatever because, but we're using riches as an example here. So you'd say to yourself, and you'd say this aloud, and you'd write down as quickly as you can the first idea that comes to you. So you'd say, I can't become rich because, and write out as quickly as you can the first thing that comes to mind. You don't do this slowly. You need to do it really quickly, because you're trying to tap your subconscious beliefs. You're not using your rational conscious mind here. And then you do it again. Once again, you say, I can't become rich because, and you quickly write down the next thing that pops into mind. You do this about 10 times. And you know what? If you do it quickly and you do it effectively, you'll be truly shocked by some of the attitudes that you may hold about money. I've heard people say things like, I can't become rich because money doesn't grow on trees. In other words, there's lack everywhere. It's the opposite. I can't become rich because rich people are greedy. Not true. I can't become rich because everyone would hate me. All sorts of amazing ideas that we're not consciously aware of just come out when we do this. But when we are aware of what each one of those limiting beliefs is, we can then create literally affirmations to counteract each of them. For example, I can't become rich because rich people are greedy. You could convert that into the opposite. I can become rich because rich people are generous, and so am I. Now, this seems incredibly simplistic. And how could something so simple work? But it does. And the second step of that exercise, where you're converting the negative limiting belief into its opposite, into a positive, empowering belief, you do that slowly. You want to use your conscious, rational thinking mind to come up with as many reasons as possible why the negative limiting belief is false. So I've just really related a very condensed version of it, but it's a very simple way of rooting out limiting beliefs in any area of life. And
That's
then,
so good.
and what was impossible for us before suddenly becomes possible. It suddenly becomes possible. I remember back in the early 1990s, I had my business. I had a tropical plant business. I'd rent tropical plants to offices and banks and hotels, that kind of thing. And I was on a financial roller coaster for the first few years, as most businesses are. But I realized that if I was to achieve my dream of start really helping society in a major way, I would have to sort out my finances, And I had a series of experiences that were showing me that I had very low self-worth. And
Yeah.
because I had very low self-worth, I devalued myself, and my finances reflected that. But when I started taking actions to counteract those limiting beliefs, the first thing I did, Constance, was I had to double my prices to my clients. And they all said, no problem. We thought you were too cheap.
Yeah.
So they were seeing me devaluing myself. But that was one of the examples. And my business really took off from that point. But then I did other things to appreciate myself more. As I built my own self-worth, my finances reflected that. So we've got to find out what it is that is stopping us achieving our goals.
So
If we
true.
don't do that, we will always be held back by unseen hidden forces that reside only within our own mind.
This has been so powerful. And I read your book. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at it right now on my Kindle iPad, and I just love it, and I'm really encouraging listeners to really go and get his book because it's life changing, and he's
Thanks so much.
Exhibit A. And so, Mike, we have 5 minutes left. I want you to tell people how can they get your book. What is your contact
Absolutely.
information? Do you coach, et cetera, et cetera,
Sure.
et cetera?
Well, yeah, you can get the book on Amazon, Amazon.com. It's the most powerful goal achievement system in the world. It's been a number one bestseller since it was launched a year and a half ago,
Hmm.
way beyond what I could have ever hoped. I'm just delighted, because my only aim with this book is to help as many people as possible. And it seems to be doing that. So I'm really grateful for that. So that's Amazon.com, the most powerful goal achievement system in the world. Yes, I do coaching. I do one-on-one coaching. And
Give us your website.
yeah, it's achievegoalsfast.com. Achievegoalsfast.com. But I also have a monthly group coaching program because my one-on-one program is kind of expensive, but I have a group coaching program where I go live in front of the video camera
Uh-huh.
once a month, and then we have a questions and answer session, completely interactive. And I teach success strategies, tools, and techniques that have scientifically been proved to work. So this is really powerful stuff. But can I share a gift with
You
your
can.
listener?
Go ahead.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to give away a copy of my first book, which is Unlock Gratitude Now. It's all about the power of gratitude and how to use it to transform your life in very positive ways. It also includes an audio book called What Happens When We Die. I've researched the evidence for life after death for such a long time. And as a skeptic, in this audiobook, there is really tangible stuff. I've sifted through a lot of the BS to come to share really tangible evidence that our lives continue on. It's so important.
Right.
And then also a video course called, I think you'll appreciate this, Change Your Thoughts, Transform Your Life.
Right.
And it's available at achievegoalsfast.com/gift. So that's www.achievegoalsfast.com/gift. So that's a book on gratitude, audiobook on evidence for life after death, and video course called Change Your Thoughts, Transform Your Life. Whew.
You did it, Mike. Well, listeners, I'm just going to say to you that I'm very careful about who I invite on my show, and I talked to Mike first. I love his vibe. He's very much into really serving. He's done a lot of inner work, etc. So, number one, go and get his book, but then secondly, take advantage of all of the free gifts that he's sharing with us. And Mike, we just thank you so much for your
Oh, thank
generosity.
you,
So I'm
Constance.
going to have you
Such a
to
privilege.
come back and
Be delighted.
expound more on, just some other areas of your life. And
Sure, if
people
you really.
love great stories. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much, Constance. As I say, it's absolutely a privilege. And your listeners is really where my heart lies. I'm so passionate about this subject, and they are listening to exactly the right radio show. You're doing amazing work. Thanks so much, Constance.
Thank you so much for joining me today, and I do hope you found it helpful. To get free books, videos, and training programs that will help you to achieve your goals 10 times faster, visit my website at achievegoalsfast.com. That website again is achievegoalsfast.com. Also, remember to share this podcast with your friends and anyone you feel might benefit from it. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to speaking with you again very soon.